Marcia was born and raised on the peninsula of Hampton Roads, Virginia. She graduated from Ward High School and attended Spelman College, where she received her Bachelor's of Arts degree in philosophy with an intensive study in biology in 2002. She received her Master's of Arts in Religious Studies from Howard University in 2005 and has completed some coursework towards her Master of Divinity degree at Howard University. In 2015, Delegate Price was elected to the Virginia House of Delegates, representing the 95th District, which includes parts of the cities of Hampton and Newport News. On November the 7th, 2017, she was re-elected for her second term to represent the 95th District. She serves on the Health, Welfare and Institutions Committee, the Privileges and Elections Committee, the General Laws Committee. In addition, she serves as Secretary of both the House Democratic Caucus and the Virginia Legislative Black Caucus. Delegate Price is a member of the Hampton Roads Gun Violence Prevention Caucus, the National Conference of State Legislators, and the National Black Caucus of State Legislators. In September 2016, as a project of New Virginia Majority, Delegate Price founded and became the director of the Virginia Black Leadership Organizing Collaborative, known as Virginia Block, a nonprofit organization focused on building, empowering communities through integrated voter engagement, civic involvement, and leadership development. Delegate Price is a proud member of the Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated Lambda Omega chapter, where she was named Greek of the Year in 2009 and 2011. As a fourth-generation resident of the peninsula, she embraces her family's legacy of service and strives to make a positive impact in the peninsula community that's given her so much. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in giving a warm welcome to Delegate Marcia Sia Price.
Thank you, thank you. Good afternoon to Maya Edmond, President of Gamma Theta Chapter, Tandy Talaferro, President of Gamma Upsilon Omega Chapter, to Senator Locke and other members of our sorority, family and friends, and to the 62 new members of this illustrious sorority. It is an honor to be with you today for such an important and serious matter. I know that today is a celebration, but before we get to the party part, I want to help recalibrate us for the purpose of this moment. Now, I have one rule when I speak, and that's if you learn something new, you have to promise to share it with 5 other people outside of this room. That's right. Okay? We have a deal? Yeah. That is important to me because we have to remember that the oppressors will not willingly uplift our stories of freedom and revolution. That's our job. All right, so first, before I really jump into this thing, I want to remind you what our political climate looks like today. And some of you, your brains went straight to Washington. And I want you to make a stop in Richmond before you get to Washington. Yes, she's going there. All that transpired in Richmond during Black History Month can teach us a lot. To be clear, the fallout over blackface was about so much more than just a photo. That photo ripped off the facade of unity that we have been using to cover the societal cancer of hatred, oppression, and systemic racism in our great Commonwealth. But with all that I learned, the most vivid lesson that I walked away from this session is that it wasn't the dumpster fire that I had first perceived it to be. It was actually a raising of the land, creating a new pathway, prime for women of color to step up and lead. And I am hopeful here on today, because I know that is what we do when we are needed. Like Septima Clark, who educated Black residents toward full citizenship rights, including literacy, state government, election procedures, and nonviolent protest. She graduated with her master's from Hampton Institute. She fought for equal rights so hard that they considered her to be the queen mother of the civil rights movement. She impacted Dr. King so much that he shouted her out during his acceptance speech for the 1964 Nobel Peace Prize and requested that she accompany him to Sweden. She once said, "I believe unconditionally in the ability of people to respond when they are told the truth. We need to be taught to study rather than believe, to inquire rather than affirm." Dorothy Boulding Farabee was an advocate for racial equity and fought for fairness in housing, healthcare, and education. Diamond member of AKA and member of Lambda Omega chapter, Katherine Johnson is the hidden figure portrayed by Taraji P. Henson, who worked as a NASA computer and was pivotal in our achieving major international aeronautic successes. And we need to send her some love, y'all, because she just recently lost her husband. And let me tell you something, when I asked Miss Johnson, was Mr. Johnson as romantic as he was portrayed in the movie? And she said, yes, every bit of it. And so may he rest in peace. Hazel O'Leary was the 7th United States Secretary of Energy. And even to this day, she was the first and only woman and African American to be confirmed to that position. Viola Louise Duval Stewart sued to ensure that all 6,000 black teachers in South Carolina got equal pay. Clovia Wheeler helped run massive voter registration campaigns, and Zelma May Cheney was a law school student that provided crucial research to Thurgood Marshall in the 1954 Brown versus Board of Education case. What do these women have in common? They are freedom fighters, they are overcomers, they are warriors. They struggled hard, they collaborated with others, they achieved successful outcomes. And they are AKAs. And yes, please. And I must mention that there is a compilation of civil rights unsung heroes, unsung sorors, and 40 of the Hall of Famers were college students when they began to make a huge impact with their activism. They were regular people, often young, just like you, using their time, talent, and resources to make a difference. They were real people on the grassroots level, collectively shifting and shaping national conversations. They refused to let injustice be the norm. They refused to let their circumstances define them. They created their own narrative, and they spoke up and stepped up when they were needed. They found themselves in a certain position, and they had to decide to do the work to make the change. The position. They found themselves in a new position. And let me highlight 2 more AKAs. May Hamlin Scott initiated an Alpha Epsilon chapter in 1936, and Valerie Scott Price initiated a Gamma Theta chapter in 1973. My grandmother and my mother, and they are largely the reason that I have any titles or letters associated with my given name, because they stayed on me, and they made sure that I strove for excellence in everything that I did. Whenever I would rise to a new level or obtain some modicum of success, they would ask me, well, what are you going to do with it? And with that grounding question, they enhanced my trajectory of becoming an elected official fighting for civil rights by reminding me that positions come with purpose. I hope you will indulge me just a little as I make this plain another way. When I think about being in a position and having to decide to do the work to make the change, I think of none other than the story of Queen Esther. Esther was an outcast who rose to the role of queen because the king thought she was beautiful. She was a pretty girl, but that's not where her story ended. That was just the first layer. When the decree was made by her husband, the king, to kill all the Jews, he didn't know she was a Jew. She could have hidden in the palace, saved herself, but her uncle Mordecai begs her to help him save their entire people. Her first response, oh no, because she could get killed for doing what he was asking of her. But he reminded her, as I paraphrase, ma'am, you do remember that you are a Jew, right? Don't let your location and position fool you. In Esther 4, verse 14, he says, "For if you keep silent at this time, relief and deliverance will rise for the Jews from another place, but you and your father's house will perish. And who knows whether you have not come to the kingdom for such a time as this?" When it's easier to go downstairs and get a gun right now than it is to register to vote. When our young folks are being killed by those same guns at higher rates than car accidents. When gang leaders are recruiting harder than youth pastors. When laws are being passed that will strengthen the school to prison pipeline versus dismantle it. When our voting rights are being attacked with attempts to silence our voices. When our youth are being made to memorize versus learn and analyze and being set up for failure. When those in poverty are being criminalized for being poor, but it's not a crime to pay less than a living wage. When decision makers can refute scientific fact, harm our environment, and not have any responsibility to take for it. When the number of missing black and brown girls is rising. When misogyny, foolery, white nationalists, bigotry, and greed are more welcomed in our White House than hard work, reason, facts, good judgment, and compassion. When tax structures are in place that prevent the bottom 50% from upward mobility, but are set up for them to pay a higher rate in taxes to begin with. When black voters this session were told that our justice must wait another day in order to have larger reforms. When change and process occur on the backs and at the necks of those most directly affected by the injustice. When the fights we face today are the same as some of those from previous generations, I know we need more people to step up and help fix this mess. Like the story of Esther and the legacies of the members of Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated, it wasn't about the position that they had arisen to in order to look down on others. It was so they could speak up, right wrongs, fill voids, and change mindsets. To my beautiful new 62 sisters, why are you in this position as a new member of AKA today? Is it to keep your position so that you may be kept? Or is it for you to use this amazing international network to uplift and amplify our service to all mankind? Is it to stay silent in times of trial, to stay safe and keep that position? Or is it to speak up for those whose voices have been diminished by systematic silencing forces? I think my grandmother was right. We are put into positions for a purpose, and that purpose is not complacency. Our purpose, like those who have gone before us, is to invest our time, our talent, and resources to make a difference. We are to articulate the problems we face, pray for discernment, create comprehensive and solutions-oriented plans, and then get off our butts and implement those plans like our lives depend on it, because they do. Will you step into the position of soror or just occupy the title? Will you solely focus on the colors, the letters, the trinkets, the strolls, the parties that all have their place? Or will you focus on the mission of the sisterhood? If you ask me, our community condition requires that our focus as a member of this illustrious organization must be on the legacy that these women I named today, and so many others, have trailblazed in service to all mankind, finding your own way to build upon it. The legacy of Septima is still alive, and we need you to learn how the system works so that you can teach it to others. The legacy of Dorothy is still alive, and we need you to fight for racial equity. The legacy of Catherine is still alive, and we need you to excel in your studies to impact your career path. The legacy of Hazel is still alive, and we need you to be prepared in case you're tapped for a leadership position. The legacy of Viola is still alive, and if we fight, we must fight for all that are involved in the injustice. The legacy of Clovia is still alive, and we need you to hold massive voter registration campaigns. The legacy of Zelma is still alive, and we need you to research so thoroughly that your work could change a national conversation about education or whatever the topic may be. AKAs, we vote, we teach, we research, we lead, we join forces, we hold each other accountable, we build, we analyze, we give, we advocate, we get things done. And now you are part of this organization today. And there are 62 amazing reasons for us to have hope in our future. So congratulations on arriving at this moment in this position as a member of Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated. It's now time to decide, what are you going to do with it? Thank you.